So this is the 1.6 video. We're going to learn about inverse functions, so make sure you watch the video, complete the notes, and turn them in by the end of the class period. So looking down at this box down here, two functions are inverses such that f of g of x is equal to x, and also g of f of x is equal to x. We name a function using this little notation so that f negative 1 of x, we'll see, is just saying the inverse of f. So this is what we call an inverse. This is just how we name it. So we'll find an inverse and then just name it at the end with that little negative 1 on the f. So that just means it's the inverse. And then if we look at this little box up here, this picture, the domain of f is the same thing as the range of f of negative 1. And we know domain is x values and range is y values. So all the x values in our function end up becoming the y values. And you'll see how that happens when we find an inverse. But the first two examples, we're going to be verifying inverses. So we're going to use this part here. So we're going to have to find f of g, make sure that that's equal to x, and g of f, and make sure that that's equal to x. So looking at example 3, we have to show that the functions are inverses of each other. So again, we want to check f of g and then check g of f. So let's start by f of g of x. So we're going to take g, because that's on the inside, and plug it in inside f. So I have 2 times the cubed root of x plus 1 over 2 cubed minus 1. So I'm going to simplify this. The cubed root and the cubes will end up canceling each other out. So now I'm just left with 2 times x plus 1 over 2 minus 1. And then the 2's end up canceling each other out because I have times 2 and divided by 2. So those go away. So then I have x plus 1 minus 1. And plus 1 minus 1 is just 0. So this is just x. So f of g of x is just x. So we're good there, but we also have to check g of f of x. So g of f of x. So now we're taking f and plugging it into the x in g. So here I have the cubed root of 2x cubed minus 1 plus 1 divided by 2. So negative 1, that minus 1 plus 1 cancels. So then I have the cubed root of 2x cubed divided by 2. The 2's cancel. And then I'm just left with the cubed root of x cubed. And the cubed root of something cubed cancels out also. So then this is just x. So g of f of x is also just x. So because I got x for f of g and g of f, that means that g and f are inverses of each other. So we have to check f of g and g of f in order to verify that they are functions, that they are inverses. In example 4, again, we are verifying our inverse functions, but it says which of the functions is the inverse of f. So I have to check f of g of x and g of f of x, and then I also have to do the same thing with h and check that one too. So let's check. So f of g of x, g's on the inside, so g is going to go inside the x in f. So I have 5 over x minus 2 divided by 5 minus 2. Just looking at this from here, nothing can undo itself. The 2's don't cancel, the 5's can't cancel yet, so I'm just going to move on to h. I'm going to come back to that, but let's take a look at h and see how h and f work out once I find f of h and h of f. So let's start, since h is on the inside, I'm going to take h and plug it into the x in f. So I have 5 over x plus 2 minus 2. So here we have a plus 2 and a minus 2 that are going to cancel. So now I have 5 over 5x, 5 over x. Whenever we have a fraction in the inside of a fraction, we keep the top, change to multiplication, and flip the fraction. So 5, we're changing to multiplication and flipping the bottom fraction. I'll make a dot instead of an x so we don't get confused. 5 times x over 5. Now since I'm multiplying by 5 and dividing by 5, they'll cancel. And then I'm just left with x, which is exactly what we wanted. Now let's check h of f of x. So since f is on the inside, I'm going to take f and plug it into the x in h. So I have 5 over my entire function, f, so 5 over x minus 2, and then plus 2. Alright, so let's work with our fraction first and see if we can simplify things. Again, when I have a fraction and a fraction, keep the top, change to multiplication, and flip the bottom. Keep, change, flip. So 5 times, flip the bottom fraction, so x minus 2 over 5 plus 2. 5 being multiplied and 5 being divided will cancel. So this is x minus 2 plus 2. And then the minus 2 and plus 2 cancel. So then I'm just left with x, which is exactly what we wanted. So because f of h of x and h of f of x are both x, that means that h and f are inverses of each other. So h would be the inverse of f. All right, for the last 3, we want to find the inverse. So here we're not verifying, we are finding the inverse. So to find the inverse, we're going to take x and change it to y, and then we're going to solve for y. So in the end, we always want our equation to be y equals. So remember, f of x is just a fancy way of saying y, but I'm going to flip my x and y. So I am going to make y x and then make x y. So 5 minus 3y over 2. So we're flipping the x's and y's with each other. And then I'm going to solve for y. So in order to undo everything and solve for y here, since my right side of the equation is being divided by 2, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So this gets multiplied times 2, and then the right side gets multiplied times 2. So this is 2x is equal to, the 2 that I'm multiplying is going to cancel out with the 2 on the bottom. We don't distribute that 2. That's kind of a common mistake that people will make, is they distribute it to both things on top, but it just cancels out with the bottom. You're not distributing it. When we divide by 2, it gets canceled out with multiplying by 2. So I'm only left with 5 minus 3y on the right side. Now again, we are solving for y, so I want to undo everything on the right side. So next I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. So 2x minus 5 is equal to negative 3y. And then since negative 3 is being multiplied to y, to move that to the other side, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. So this is 2x minus 5 divided by negative 3. It's equal to y, but this we now said is our inverse. So I'm going to call it f negative 1 of x. So that's the f inverse of x. So we just add this at the end to call it the inverse. All right, let's take a look at 2. So again, we're doing the same thing to find the inverse. We're going to flip our x and y. So I'm going to make, this is y, but I'm going to make it x, and I'm going to make my x y. So I'm changing this to be x and changing this one to be y. So x is equal to 3y plus 4 over 5. Now I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by 5 since y is being divided by 5, and I want to undo everything. So I'm going to multiply both sides times 5. So 5x is equal to the 5 that I'm multiplying cancels out with the 5 that's being divided there. So it's equal to 3y plus 4. Next, I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. So 5x minus 4 is equal to 3y. And then divide both sides by 3. So 5x minus 4 over 3 is equal to y. Now this is our inverse. Once we get y all by itself, it's the inverse, but we have to name it the inverse. So f inverse x is equal to 5x minus 4 divided by 3. All right, lastly, let's take a look at number 3. So I'm going to flip my x and y. So now this becomes y and this becomes x. So x is equal to the square root of 2y minus 3. We want to solve for y, so I have to undo everything on the right side. So since it's being square rooted on the right side, I'm going to square both sides of my equation, so this will cancel. So I have x squared is equal to 2y minus 3. Next, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So x squared plus 3 is equal to 2y. And then I'm going to divide 2. So x squared plus 3 divided by 2 is equal to y. Once I get y all by itself, I just need to name it the inverse. So f inverse of x is x squared plus 3 divided by 2. So it's not super tricky on how to find the inverse. Just make sure you are careful with your order of operations, because the order matters in how you undo everything to find the inverse. So I would just say take your time with this type of stuff. Just take one step at a time. When you try to do 2 things at once, that's when mistakes happen. So just take your time. All right, so don't forget to turn in the notes for the video. So turn in the notes by the end of class, and then if you have time left, you can start working on the WebAssign, so 1.6 WebAssign, and that is due on Tuesday, since we have a long weekend this weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Bye, guys.